Welcome to Outside Sales Talk, where we meet with industry experts to learn the strategies and tactics that make them successful. I'm your host, Steve Benson, and I've helped thousands of salespeople all over the world crush their quota. Today, I'll help you crush yours. Welcome back to Outside Sales Talk. Today, I've got Viveka von Rosen with us, and she's going to be talking about the secrets to standing out and selling on LinkedIn. Welcome to the show, Viveka.
Thank you so much. It's a pleasure to be here during these crazy times.
That's right. And for people that aren't listening, in real time here, this is the middle of April of 2020. So we're, relatively recently sequestered in our homes here with COVID. So Viveka is internationally known as the LinkedIn expert, and she works with B2B companies and executives. She helps them achieve business success through the use of LinkedIn. She's also the co-founder of Vengresso, a platform that delivers digital sales transformation for increased brand visibility, pipeline, and revenue results. Viveka has been listed as a top social media influencer in Forbes for the past 4 years, and she also wrote a book called LinkedIn Marketing, An Hour a Day, and LinkedIn 101 Ways to Rock Your Personal Brand. So really excited to get to pick your brain here today, Viveka.
Absolutely. My pleasure to be here.
So
I love the idea of someone like listening to this in, November, December, when all of this has passed and like the economy is back on and we're back, visiting with our prospects and talking to our clients face to face. But anyway, we're not there yet.
Well, as a company that helps enable companies to talk face to face to their clients, we're really looking forward to that too.
Exactly.
So tell me, first question, Rebecca, how can salespeople position themselves as sales experts on LinkedIn?
Yeah, exactly. And whether it's now or the future, the first thing you want to do is make sure that you've got a strong brand on LinkedIn, meaning your profile looks good. Because of course, when people are Googling you or they're Googling your company or they're Googling your product or service, 9 times out of 10, a LinkedIn profile is going to show up on the first page. So A, we want it to be yours, but B, we want to make sure that your profile looks good. So when people click through, they're not like, yeah, no, I'm not working with this guy or gal, So having a strong brand on LinkedIn is crucial, which we'll talk about in just a minute. Another thing, especially now that more people are spending more time online, is sharing content. Now, I know you're salespeople, you're not marketers in most cases. So, you don't have to create your own content. You don't have to go start writing blog posts or create your own podcast, although that's a good idea that Steve's done. But you want to at least curate useful content that maybe your company is already putting out there. And you want to let people know what the content is and who should be reading it and why they should be reading it and what their time investment might be towards reading it. And if you front the content with just those things, you'll get a lot more people, reading the content, but also engaging with you. And that's the third thing, is you want to make sure you want to keep that engagement up. Whether you're, stalking your own prospects or creating your own content and looking at your notifications, who's engaging with you on the posts that you shared. But you need to keep those conversations going so that when you do reach out to your prospect and invite them to connect, they're much more willing to do so.
Well, and from a kind of blocking and tackling perspective on a daily basis, what are the processes and what are the things that someone who's in sales can do on LinkedIn so that that they can really accomplish these goals?
Exactly. So first of all, you want to stalk your prospects, right? You want to make sure that you find them on LinkedIn, maybe even that you save their profile. If you've got Sales Navigator, you can do that automatically just by creating lists and popping them in. But on regular free LinkedIn, they don't have that. But you can always just, save a profile to a Chrome folder or bookmark it. But you want to keep your eyes on your prospects, at least the ones that are active on LinkedIn. So when they share a post, when they comment on a post, it's an opportunity to engage. And because right now we're not going to trade shows, we're not going to conferences, we don't have the opportunity of kind of sliding up to a conversation that's going on in a room. We can still do that on LinkedIn. And so that's kind of how you keep an eye on what your prospects are doing. And if they're sharing content, it's like you're sliding into that conversation and you're able to engage with them. And then, of course, invite them to connect, which I mentioned earlier. So that's one thing that you should be doing. Another thing is the cool thing about LinkedIn is it'll show you who you have in common. So if you've got a prospect that you want to engage with, you can go to their profile and see if you've got anyone in common. And if you do, you can reach out to that person, or better yet, if there's 3, 4, 5, 10, 15 people that you have in common, choose kind of the top 5 that you think are willing to introduce you. Ask them if they're willing to introduce you. And when they, maybe 3 out of the 5 will say yes, choose your best yes. Choose the person you think is most likely to do that introduction and is most well known, by your buyer. And then write the introduction for them. So, just say, hey, thank you so much. Listen, I want to make this as easy as possible. I'm going to write the introduction for you. And by the way, when you send it, would you just CC me? And then that way, it kind of takes the onus off of you to follow up with them. Of course, when you CC someone either through a LinkedIn message or a Facebook message or a text message or a regular old email, it means now you can be in contact with that individual. So even if they don't go, yeah, I'd love to meet Viveka, I now am in a conversation stream with them. So unless they block me, I can continue that conversation. We call that our 2-step referral method. But those 2 things, just engaging on your prospect's content and getting introduced to the right prospects, introduced or referred by, is extremely powerful thing that you can do right now, since the traditional sales call is kind of out the window for a little bit.
Awesome advice. In your book, you quote Zig Ziglar.
Yeah.
And the quote is, if people like you, they will listen to you. But if they trust you, they'll do business with you.
Exactly.
How can LinkedIn be best used to foster trust with potential customers?
Exactly. And as my friend Bob Berg says, all things being equal, people do business with people they know, like, and trust. And so we now shrink that down to the KLT factor. So really, when it comes to moving people from knowing about you to trusting you, is by being an advocate online. Instead of being that like annoying salesperson with a really crappy profile, you create a strong brand, and then you continue to share helpful, useful content out there. Maybe you're engaging in groups and helping people out through groups. Maybe you're, sharing helpful, useful content, either that your company has sourced for you as far as blog posts, podcasts, etc., YouTube channels, or maybe you're sourcing your own content. As long as you know who your buyer is, what your buyer persona is, you can source helpful, useful content. And that kind of helps to build that positive sentiment. And then that will shift you from people just knowing you to liking you. Back in the day, like a long time ago, before the internet, salespeople were really more considered advisors. Like if you had a question about a product, you would reach out, and the salesperson would be an advisor and be your POC, your contact. And they were someone who was helpful and useful. And then, they'd sell you stuff. But with the onset of the internet and aggressive sales, we think of salespeople more as the used car salesman or woman. And we're getting a bad rap. Salespeople are really getting a bad rap on LinkedIn. And unfortunately, too many people use LinkedIn, right? They invite someone to connect. The person says yes. And the next thing you know, you're on some email list that you didn't sign up for, some newsletter. You're starting to get some newsletters in your inbox that you didn't sign up for. And the next message from them is, awesome, thanks for connecting. Now buy my stuff. And we would never do that in real life. So I don't know why people think it's okay to do that on LinkedIn. So as salespeople, we really need to set ourselves up as the trusted advisor to shift from no to like to trust.
Yeah, the strategy of creating great content and then sharing it, I'm a huge believer in that, and
Yeah.
that's definitely been the most important marketing strategy that I've used in the past here. If you create stuff that create value for prospects, then they just through using that stuff, they become aware of what you do. And they're I think people probably know a lot about you before they actually even
Yeah.
choose to engage with your company. And so, you got to make those, you got to have that stuff to first get them aware of what you do. And LinkedIn's a great place to do that, as well as other places. Um, but then once they're aware, then they can start uh, knowing more and more about your stuff. And then if they are interested, then they
They'll
can,
reach
you
out
want to
to
make
you.
it available to it, like great resources to learn more. And then after they've learned, I think that's when they reach out to you.
Exactly. It's interesting. And this is a LinkedIn stat, but they said 62% of modern buyers research the modern sellers online, whereas modern sellers are only researching their buyers 50, I think it was 54 or 56% of the time. So yeah,
Mm.
to your point, your buyers are absolutely looking at you on LinkedIn. At least 62% of them are. So you need to make sure that you look good. And the other cool thing is, even if you're not connected to someone, you can always share their stuff if they're posting on LinkedIn. And that's a big if. A lot, some people just have a profile, it looks like a resume, and they've never
Hmm.
gone back in since. Well, then you got to think of some other ways of getting them engaged. But for those who are actually active on LinkedIn, when you share their content, you're in a way you're aligning yourself with them, and people will assume there's some there's some connection or relationship there, even if there isn't. And it's a win-win. And of course, they'll be notified that you shared their content too, and it gives you content to share that might be relevant to your audience. So I always say, if you're trying to get on someone's good side, do something nice for them, and promoting their content is definitely one thing you can do. And of course, if you are connected to them, an endorsement is always a nice thing to do as well. Or, hey, take 10, 15 minutes and write them a nice recommendation. So all of that's going to foster positive sentiment.
Absolutely. What are some other features and capabilities that LinkedIn has that you'd recommend that would be helpful to salespeople to get more mileage out of their social selling strategies?
Yeah, well, one cool thing, and especially if you use your mobile device, the messaging on your mobile device allows you to send voicemails and even voice videos or video messages. So that is huge because you're really going to stand out. I mean, most people just, if they are connected with someone, they just send an old sales pitch, which, bleh. Uh, the best you usually get is maybe a thoughtful, written message with some helpful, useful links. We recommend the PVC method. So you always want to personalize it. You never want to automate or even look like you automated your engagement on LinkedIn. You always want to add value. And then when the time is right, put in a call to action, like, here's my calendar link, let's book some time. So use our PVC method. But if you can use your cell phone app and leave a voicemail or leave a video, it's really, really powerful. And there's a bunch of other tools in messaging too. You can add documents, you can put GIFs in there, you can add emojis. So there's a lot of things, a lot of different ways that you can use messaging to stand out. So that's definitely something that I would recommend. And then, of course, if you've got Sales Navigator, you can of course send messages to people who you're not connected with, although you're limited as far as voicemail and video. You can't do that. But also, if you've got Sales Navigator, you can save your prospects in a leads list and basically keep an eye on them. And that makes it easier to engage with them too. So those are just a few additional things that you can do to engage with your prospects on LinkedIn.
Great ideas. Let's talk about the actual LinkedIn profile.
Yeah.
What would you say are good characteristics of a good summary section on someone's LinkedIn profile?
Yeah, thank you. Great question. So most people, if they even have a summary section, they've maybe pulled it from the about section of the website. But what you want to do, you almost want to make it a sales page, right? So you always want to focus on your buyer or your buyer personas. So what are their points of pain? What are they struggling with, and how do you help them? So when we're talking about LinkedIn, it's, who do you help? How do you help them? And then you can give some examples of how you've helped companies like theirs. You can pop in a real short, because you're limited to 2,000 characters, a short testimonial. And for sure, you want to add media, testimonials, checklists, white papers, case studies, posts, articles, updates, but you want to add things in the featured section, which used to be the old summary media section, that focuses on what their points of pain are. So it makes your profile a resource rather than a resume. And your summary section is a really important place to do that. And when you're creating your summary section, because people are only going to see the first 2 or 3 lines. And a lot of people think that's all the space you have for a summary. But if you put a call to read, something that's going to grab their attention, maybe it's a question, maybe it's a common statistic, but something that gets them to click on the see more, then that opens up the rest of the 2,000 characters, which hopefully they will read through. And then at the very end, you can, of course, put a little bit more about who you are. So they might have that personal connection, and then contact info. If you're comfortable doing so, at least the company's 1-800 number and maybe your company email address down there too, so that people can easily reach out to you without having to connect with you first.
Yeah, I like to make it real clean to get communication off of LinkedIn, because so many people's inboxes on LinkedIn are such a mess. Mine's a disaster because there's so much marketing stuff coming in, and the email situation there isn't really well structured like a regular inbox, and so
Yeah.
it's things can very easily get lost. I've been meaning for several years to go through and and try to pick out the good messages there. It's a tough messaging platform.
It's, a
Um,
little bit every day, and it is way easier to do on your phone. But yeah, if you let it sit and sit and sit, to your point, there could be thousands. Oh my God, I was working with a medical device company, and he was looking for investors. And so we were doing all, everything that we do. And he's like, I don't get it. It's not working. So I'm like, oh, that's weird. So we got on, I know it was before Zoom. So we got on, I don't know, WebEx or something like that. And, you know, I looked at his inbox, and I wish I was kidding. I'm not. He had $2.8 million sitting there. $2.8 million. People going, we want to invest. We want to invest. We want to invest. Unfortunately, some of those people were like, well, yeah, that was a month ago. I wanted to invest. I've invested elsewhere now. So I think he ended up making getting about 1.2 million in investments. But I mean, oh my God, now that's extreme. Most of us only have a couple 100,000 sitting in our inboxes, but that's all. But yeah, you absolutely want to keep an eye on your inbox, but it's like eating the elephant one bite at a time, just a little bit of activity every day.
yeah.
You can eat that down slowly, and, just delete the stuff that's old or not relevant, just delete it, archive it, whatever.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah. I think that's the challenge, is it doesn't, you can't use it like a normal inbox. And
Yeah.
so a lot, especially like when I'll accept 100 invites in
Yeah.
a row, and each one has a message in it.
Yeah.
And
Exactly.
so the stuff from, a week ago is now buried. And when
Yeah.
when you answer something, it like puts you back at the top, and you have to like find your place again. It's a nightmare, but
It is. It is. It's not my favorite. It's not my favorite messaging platform for sure.
well, back to your point about the way that people kind of structure
Yeah.
their the way their LinkedIn profile is set up. I feel like when you take a step back, what's going
Yeah.
on is it looks like a lot of people who are in sales, it looks like they're selling themselves on their LinkedIn profile. It looks like they're
Yes.
trying to get
Yeah.
a new job.
Yes.
Which is not the case. A lot of times they're trying to sell the stuff at their current
Right.
job, but their LinkedIn profile is set up like to sell them. They're like, I am these are my sales results numbers. I'm super
Right.
aggressive at sales. And it's like, well, no, this is not where you talk about you. This is where you talk about your product.
Right. We closed this one deal and it's to that point exactly. Like this company's like, nah, we don't need social selling. We're rocking it. We're pretty awesome. So we did an audit, and the three top people who turned up, one of them had a skull and crossbones background image. The company has nothing to do with skulls and crossbones. Skull and crossbone background image. The other guy, his summary was like, I'm a quota crushing sales guy, hit President's Club, this, and like, ew, like I don't want to be sold to by that guy. And it
Right.
wasn't a guy. And then the third person summary was talking about all about the program he did at Google, which was not what this company was, right? So it's like, okay, your three top profiles that are showing up when someone searches on your company are skull and crossbones, quota crushing sales guy, and someone apparently who still works at Google.
Yeah.
At which point they went, oh.
Maybe we should look at this.
Maybe
Yeah.
we should. Yeah. So, and even if it's just a matter of creating a template where you can create a couple different background images for your folks to upload, a couple example summaries and a couple example experience and a couple different headlines that they can choose from. Like, even if you just create a template like that and then, teach them how to upload it, that will make all the difference in the world. That's what we do when we work with companies on their branding.
Mm-hmm.
And, on average, we get a 300% increase in profile views for our customers once we've created that brand for them on LinkedIn, because their keywords are there. To your point, it's a brand that it's a profile that's buyer centric, and it's speaking to the buyer. It's not a resume. So more people are finding them and spending time on them.
Yeah, I had your co-founder Mario on here.
Yeah.
It
Yeah.
must have been 2 years ago or so on the show. And after that show, I had a meeting with my marketing team where we basically did exactly what you just said. We created the background. We created here's some good taglines. And really, I mean, a lot of people just hadn't updated their LinkedIn
Yeah.
profile since their last job because they
Right.
weren't looking for a job. And to them, it was kind of, well, yeah, LinkedIn's kind of a way I get a job, and I've got one. So
Yeah, exactly. But in sales, like, we've got to present ourselves in the right way. And I just jumped on your profile. Great background image. Of course, it's of your product. And then your headline, right? Automating busy. Well, you have your title at company, which is fine. And then, because people might not know what Badger Maps actually is, it's automating busy work for outside sales reps to save 10 hours a week. Bam. Right? Mm-hmm. So it's, like, just that little tiny change makes such a difference in how people perceive you and your company.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. And also that's what people see if you view their profile, and then they look at who's viewed my profile. It's that little synopsis that they get to read. And so that's extra important.
Yeah. I mean, if I just had Chief Visibility Officer at Vengresso or CVO at Vengresso, first of all, people are like, what's a CVO anyway? Like, for that matter, what's a Chief Visibility Officer? And what's a Vengresso? Is it soup? Is it a car? Like,
Right. Well, the letter V is important for you. Viveka von Rosen, who's the Chief Visibility Officer at Vengresso.
I'm a fan of alliteration.
Yeah, you win the alliteration war. So tell me, what are some mistakes that you see people make while they're social selling or while they're using LinkedIn?
Yeah, we've really covered most of these, but first of all, not having a profile, that's a huge red flag to a potential buyer. Secondly, having a really bad profile, again, huge red flag, might cost you business. Having a profile that's just a resume, it doesn't speak to your buyer, it doesn't speak to their points of pain. That's also a red flag. Having a profile that's not updated, so people are like, oh, must be a different Steve, because like, that Steve works at Google and this Steve works at, Badger mapping. So that must be different. So those are three things. And then as far as engagement, not sharing helpful, useful information. Like if you share a post at all, it's buy my stuff, buy my stuff, buy my stuff, buy my stuff. So, instead of being helpful and useful, being salesy. So that's one thing. And the thing is, we have to talk to our marketing departments and go, okay, you guys need to consider creating marketing for sales enablement. Like you have to enable us with the right type of content. And one of the things marketing departments need to do is focus on buying. There's my dad on the phone. Focus on creating content for all of the buyer's journey, not just the awareness, right? So create content for the consideration phase, create content for the purchasing phase, create content for the, customer success phase, create content for the referral phase. So you need to be creating, marketing departments need to be creating different types of content that then the sellers can share via LinkedIn to their buyers at the right time. So that's kind of the onus is a little bit on the marketing department for that. And then of course, if you invite someone to connect and they accept, do not have your first or second or even third message be, hey, buy my stuff. Like no one's going to actually say, hey, well, actually they will, but hopefully you're not saying, hey, buy my stuff, but even something that's clearly promotional, it's people are just going to delete, archive, unfollow, whatever. And then I don't get this sales technique. Hey, your website really sucks. And we've gotten this before, and our website does not suck, but hey, your website really sucks. I noticed you don't have blah, 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 which actually we did have blah, blah, blah. You should totally book some time with me and I'll fix you. It's just like middle finger to you, dude. And so, like seriously, and then the automation. Oh my God, don't even get me
that
started
person
on
read the
automation.
challenger sale wrong.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
You need to go back and read the book, not just the summary, I think. You
Yeah.
picked up the wrong information there.
Yeah, that is the wrong way to challenge your buyer. Exactly. Yeah. And then automation, like on LinkedIn, automated messaging on LinkedIn is a huge no-no. And so, and it's obvious. And also LinkedIn will restrict accounts that are clearly automating. And I cannot tell you, 2 or 3 people a day will reach out to me with a message, and it's clearly automated. No one's ever looked at my profile, sometimes because it's a dear sir, which, not. But anyway, dear sir, we can help you get more leads on LinkedIn. We help with B2B lead generation. Like, okay, clearly you didn't read my profile because so
do you know who I am?
Yeah, and do you know who I am? Exactly.
I wrote the books on this, actually.
Yeah. I did. I guess usually I just archive, but I got one of those the other day. Someone who was offering to help me with my LinkedIn profile, and I wrote back, I'm like, oh, you mean using the book that I wrote? Again, with the middle finger. But like those, and unfortunately, I mean, isn't automation great? And there are definitely some cases where automation will save you oodles amount of time, as you know, but automation on LinkedIn for lead gen with messaging, it's so obvious. I had one that said, I see you're in the cleaning supply business. We are too. We can help you generate more leads like this. No, where, like,
Yeah,
Are you
the
high? What,
cleaning
are you
supply
sniffing your
business.
cleaning direction?
I've been talking about the cleaning supply business a lot lately. That is a business that's been a lot of people in that have been buying Badger lately. Like they sell
Yeah.
cleaning supply, either cleaning supplies or services. That's been a big area. I've been thinking a lot about that industry and talking to a lot of
Yes.
people in it yet lately.
Well, yeah. I mean, this was pre COVID-19 though. So
Yeah, yeah. Well, that this is a new area for us, I think.
yeah, yeah. Well, it would be a good area, but don't use automation. Don't use LinkedIn automation tools.
I believe it. Well, how should people shouldn't be overly automated, obviously, and content is super important. But how else can field salespeople use LinkedIn to find new prospects? What are some things that you would recommend?
Yeah. So the cool thing about LinkedIn, and a lot of people don't, they only go on the top layer and they don't dig down a little bit. And there's some really cool features that are kind of hidden on LinkedIn. So, a lot of people would do a search for a prospect just using the top search bar, but they don't go into all filters. And so there's some really cool stuff hidden there. So one of the things is connections of. So if you've got like a POC, either in an industry or at a particular company, who is really well connected, and your first level connections with them, you can pop their name into connections of. You can sort by a couple other filters like title or location or industry, and you can see everyone that you have in common with that, or that person can introduce you to if it's a second level connection in a particular industry or at a company or with a title, et cetera, et cetera. So that is super powerful, especially when it comes to asking for those introductions. So a lot of people
Absolutely.
don't realize that you can do that. And that's available for free LinkedIn. So that's one of those like hidden cool things that you can do as far as finding the right types of prospects and then getting introduced to them. Another one is, and LinkedIn Sales Navigator has had the opportunity of sorting for a company and then sorting by who's active in that company on LinkedIn, who's been actively sharing content, which is great, but not everyone has Sales Nav. So LinkedIn just introduced relatively recently the ability to sort content on LinkedIn. So, if you got 500 connections, there's just a bunch of junk going on your timeline and it's hard to find the good stuff. But if you go into your content, or if you go into search for a keyword or a hashtag, and then you sort by content, and then you add the additional filters, you can also sort by industry, by a particular named account or company, when someone might have been posting. So there's additional features that you can use to find the right content being shared by your buyers or by your prospects on LinkedIn. So those are just two like ninja tricks below the surface features that people can use to find better content and engage with higher quality leads on LinkedIn.
I love it. Ninja tricks.
Ninja tricks.
What ninja tricks do you have to nurture existing prospects or customers?
Well, and it's not so ninja, but it definitely, if you're, so one ninja trick that we'll do is when we have a prospect or a buyer or an existing client who is asking a common question of us, I'll not only answer the question and make that a piece of content. I love a LinkedIn native video. It gets more views, and it's just creating a video and then uploading it natively on LinkedIn. But
Hmm.
I'll say, hey, as long with their permission, hey, John from Carousel asked this great question about what's the best way to blah, blah, blah. Thanks so much for that great question. And here's the answer. First you do blah, 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 blah. So if you actually, address them, of course, when you share, get their permission first, but when you share that piece of content as an update or as an article, you tag them in it. And of course, they're more likely, because they know that their colleagues have had that issue too. They'll then share that content with their friends and colleagues, and it will, blow up that particular piece of content. So again, it's kind of a win-win-win situation. And then, as I mentioned before, if you've got prospects, buyers, clients who are sharing content on LinkedIn, by all means share it, right? And tag them in it when you share it. So for sure they'll see it. And just little tiny things like that can make a huge difference. And then another ninja trick is we'll create what we call sharing pods with our active clients or colleagues or other influencers in our industry. So on LinkedIn and messaging, just like you would with a Facebook messenger, you can take little groups of people and it's private messaging and ask their permission first. But you can, so like we've got a Vengresso sharing pod where all the employees of Vengresso are part of the sharing pod. And then anytime one of us has content to share, we just pop the link in there. Everybody else jumps in, clicks through the link, likes it, comments on it, sometimes shares it. And that gets it greater visibility because LinkedIn's algorithm is going to look at that content and go, wow, this got a lot of activity pretty early on. We're going to open it up and show it to more people. And so you could do that with your clients. You can do that with other people that you work with. If you're connected to some, industry experts, you can all do it together. But yeah, those sharing pods are like magic as far as getting visibility and activity.
Yeah, we do that internally as well. We actually just have
Yeah.
a Slack channel
Yeah.
that,
Slack is another. Yep.
we will share if someone on the marketing team will stick something in there, and then
Yeah.
everyone on the engineering team, et cetera, who might not be aware that they've created a new piece of content will then
Exactly.
go in and like it, et cetera. The video point you said is also that's a key one. We figured that out too. That LinkedIn, if you use their native video platform, they really prefer it over if you just drop a
Yeah.
YouTube link into the same video. We learned we have to upload our videos into the LinkedIn platform, and they get
Yep.
way better visibility on LinkedIn, in their algorithm. And I think that's because they've probably found if they let people link out to YouTube for videos, then next
They're
thing you
gone.
know, the viewer has been watching cat videos for the last hour, and so
Exactly.
they lost their chance to advertise to them. So they clearly have a preference for their video platform. So if you upload the native video to them instead of just putting a link in, it kind of looks the same, but it gets totally different results.
Exactly. Yeah. Totally different results. And then, to that point, you want to keep an eye because you're going to be getting more views and hopefully you will be getting more comments. You always want to keep an eye on the people commenting and even liking, because all you have to do is hover over their name and you can send them an invitation to connect. And now you have an excuse. Hey, I noticed you liked my post or liked my video, or, you asked this great question, thought I would answer it, privately, let's connect, so there's, those are all kind of buying signals that you can utilize.
Yeah, absolutely. Um, Yeah, it's fun. People will engage with me on LinkedIn. I never have any idea of where they are in our
Yeah.
buying cycle. Like I don't know if they are customers or they just started
Right.
it to be interested, or maybe they're not interested at all. They follow our content. So I always have to like snoop around for a minute and figure out who is this person.
Yeah, exactly. But the nice thing is you're already on LinkedIn. You can click through. It's easy enough to click on their profile. They'll see that you viewed their profile, so you
Hmm.
just have a bunch of little tiny triggers or buying signals come together, hopefully to a big yes. So
Yeah, and I've seen research that you need a lot of interactions,
yeah,
and a prospect will interact with you many many times and interact with your content and company in many different
yeah.
ways before they make a purchase. And
Yeah, five
it's
to eight. Let me see if I can get this stat right. It's a buyer will look at 5 to 8 pieces of content from the winning vendor, which is why you want to make sure
mm,
you're sharing content out there, right?
yeah, absolutely. I wasn't brave enough to try to quote that stat, but that's about what I heard too.
Yeah, I've got like a whole list of stats somewhere, but I don't have that thing pulled up because yeah, I for the life of me, demand gen maybe I don't remember where that came from, but
Yeah, at this point, I think I know a stat, but I don't like to quote wrong things, so I try to avoid it. But that sounded about right to me. Uh, well, And tell me, from a marketing perspective, how is this, how is social selling that you're talking about from marketing? How do
Yeah.
they compare? Are they the same thing? Are they kind of overlapping? Marketing versus social selling. What do you think?
Yeah, I think they kind of meet in the middle through sales enablement. So marketing is mostly going to be focused on, the top of the buyer's journey, the awareness. So they're building awareness, they're creating content for a bigger buyer persona. Usually they're trying to, draw more attention and get the click-throughs and all of that kind of good stuff. But the traceable ROI is sometimes hard to pin down with marketing in general. You can see how many people viewed your profile, or viewed your content. You can see how many people click through with UTMs. You can, hopefully then move people into more of a sales funnel, so they turn from marketing qualified leads to sales qualified leads. And that's where the sales enablement piece comes in. Marketing still needs to work with the sales team in order to refine the buyer persona. I mean, it's almost comical, but also very, very sad. When I'll have a conversation with, the CMO and then the VP of sales, and the VP of sales is like, you know, they're giving us content, or they're giving us, marketing materials for the wrong buyer. Like, that's not our buyer. And then marketing's going, well, you didn't tell us, so that conversation absolutely needs to happen. And like I said, the marketing needs to be creating all types of different content, video, blog posts, podcasts, checklists, case studies. Like if you go to vengresso.com/resources, you'll see we have like 4 different classifications of resources, free resources, and then a bunch of stuff in each classification, ebooks, so that and if there's a way for marketing to classify them, whether you're using a tool or you're even just using like Slack, but hashtags, like even hashtag consideration and hashtag awareness, hashtag consideration, hashtag purchasing. Like even if you tag your content with different hashtags, that the buyer can, or the seller can go in and go, okay, I need a piece of content that speaks to this buyer persona. They're in consideration phase and they've asked this question. Like they should be able to just go into the marketing archives and find that piece of content. So whatever marketing can do to not only create the content, but organize it in a way that's easy for the buyer, or for the seller rather, to access it. And then of course the seller can share it through a private message, can share it as a public post, can share it through an email, in some cases even a text message. So they're definitely different, and they absolutely have to work together.
Yeah, and that's a classic challenge, I think.
No, it is.
I've seen that throughout my entire career, where marketing will make things, and it could be the wrong thing, or they'll make the right thing, and then sales doesn't know it's there. And
Right.
8 months later, after some amazing piece of content was created, sales is like, could we make a piece of content like this? And
And they're
push
like,
marketing's like, I made that. I spent a month on that.
exactly,
Just 8
exactly.
months ago.
And now we have to update it because the numbers are wrong.
Yeah, that too.
So
um,
true.
well, and I appreciate you telling people to go check out the site where they can go see good examples of this stuff. What about good examples of social selling? Good examples of LinkedIn profiles? If someone wanted to just say after this podcast, I want to sit down for a half hour and just
Yeah.
make a great profile. Who should they look at to kind of figure out what doing this right looks like?
Yeah. So one of the companies that's run a couple different sales teams through our program is Proofpoint. So if you go to Proofpoint or go to LinkedIn, sort by Proofpoint, and then sort by sales, you'll see a lot of similar looking profiles. So Proofpoint's a good one. They're B2B, obviously.
Mm-hmm.
A really good B2C company to look at, and they get it. I loved working with Tom James. They're a boutique clothier company, they make handmade suits, which I'm still waiting on mine. But, and now that I put the COVID-15 on, I don't think they're going to fit anymore. But anyway,
It's a challenge we're all facing.
it is. But, they were already super good on Facebook and Instagram, and YouTube, but they didn't really have a LinkedIn presence. Ironically, their buyer persona is basically the same as ours. So their buyer persona was definitely more on LinkedIn than they were on Facebook or Instagram. And so we ran them through our program. So if you go to Tom James, again, we only ran 3 of their sales groups through. So not all of their salespeople will have amazing profiles, but about 150 of them will. And, it was really fun because there's just such a visually oriented type company that the visuals are just great. And they're also really, really good at sharing content. So Tom James is a company to look at. Worked with CenturyLink. We ran 300 of their sellers through. So you could definitely look at CenturyLink. Miller Hyman Group, another sales training group. Although our sales training, we get you to hello, and then Miller Hyman Group or Sandler or, many of the other sales trainers, they can take you from hello to close. We just get you to the hello part. But if you look at some of the salespeople at Miller Hyman Group, you'll see some really good examples. And they're pretty active too. So you can see good examples of that. And then if you want to see good examples of like how to share content on LinkedIn, anyone who works at Vengresso, which is my company. Yeah.
Absolutely. You're welcome to check out my profile. I've tried to do what you guys said already.
You did. You actually, your profile's good. And, like I said, you describe what you do in your headline. I'd probably go with first person instead of third person in your about section, but you've got good media up there. That's a good resource. The background image is great. If you need help, just go to Vengresso ebook.com. That's 1 S in Vengresso. We'll share the links, but it's a free ebook. It's actually based on my 101 ways to rock your personal brand. So you could just, you pay with your email address, of course, but your name and email address, but it will walk you through everything that you need to do as far as creating a strong profile on LinkedIn.
Awesome. And this is worth everyone. I mean, even if you're not going to spend all day on it, spend 15 minutes and do the basics, because the basics are easy. I mean, like a lot of things, you can go deep on this and it's probably worth your time. But if you just get off of this and the podcast and just spend 15 minutes and knock it out, it's not like something you have to update all the time. But
exactly
15 minutes once is low hanging fruit here.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, on the topic of time, how much time do you think a salesperson should be dedicating to social selling on a daily basis?
Yeah. So in our training program, when we get to the cadence part, so it's a 6-phase training program, but when we get to cadence, first of all, the better you are at LinkedIn, the more time you'll spend on it, but it's totally worth the investment. When you're starting out, 10 minutes in the morning, 10 minutes around lunchtime, and 10 minutes in the evening, right? 10 minutes in the morning, kind of to be responsive to invitations to connect, to comments on your posts, 10 minutes in the afternoon to be a little proactive, invite some people to connect, ask for those introductions and those recommendations, and then set up your content maybe for the day. And then in the evening, be proactive for the rest of the week. If you're going to be meeting with someone, that week, make sure to connect with them. If you've got content that you need to create, formulate a plan and maybe get it ready to go for the next morning. So again, the longer, the more, like I probably spend maybe 40 minutes to an hour on LinkedIn every day. And this is my job. Like I speak about it. I write about it. I teach it. I train it. I do podcasts about, like LinkedIn is my life. I mean, that literally is my handle at LinkedIn Expert. And I only spend 40 minutes to an hour on it. So, if you're in sales, researching your prospects, things like that, you could probably get away with definitely less than an hour. Wiley made me name my book LinkedIn Marketing an Hour a Day. That was not my choice. No, like very few people spend that much time on LinkedIn.
Well, but across all the social media and just in general, I mean, especially if you include content creation, I mean,
yeah,
this may sound crazy to spend this much time on things, but remember that a lot of business leaders have, I mean, so for me, there's someone full time on
yeah, of
like
course.
my presence across all these things and just
Yeah.
doing this stuff. And like, I don't do anything on social media
Yeah.
myself because it's just not really my bag, but
Right.
like, but I mean, it looks like I do a lot of things. I mean,
Right.
this stuff's important, and I think a lot of business leaders have, someone on this, and
Yeah,
it's a career, right? It's a job.
it
And
is.
so
It is.
an individual salesperson, I think, should pay attention to this stuff because, the reason sales leaders do it is that there's an ROI on it, right? It pays for
Absolutely.
itself.
Yeah.
It generates leads, and those leads, pay for the effort. And
Yeah, if you can get like someone on your team to do 80% of the work, you still want to dip your toe in because it's too obvious when, if you have someone else like pretending to be you, inviting people to connect or following up, like invariably you're going to, well, this happened to me. My assistant disconnected me from my husband. I'm like, sorry, honey. And that's when I took that back over myself. And, reaching out, responding to people who invited me, who I already know, with the typicals kind of, follow-up message. So there are
Mhm.
some things that I definitely do myself. And then, but as far as posting content, um, at least reviewing the engagement on content. We got people who do that for us on our team, and then they'll just email me, hey, is it important that you talk to Steve Benson? Yes it is. And then I'll personally respond. But yeah, there are definitely tasks that you can delegate on LinkedIn.
Yeah, that's a good one. I go through before we send out like all the automated responses accepting connections. I have to go through to make sure it's not like, some guy I met at something a week
Right.
ago, because then I'm
Exactly.
like, oh hi, nice to meet you, blah 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 blah. Like
Yeah,
they're
yeah,
like, were you
exactly.
wasted at that event? We talked for
Yeah.
like 30 minutes. Like
Are you high right now? Yeah. Well, I am
um
in Colorado, so maybe.
yeah, exactly. Well, since weed has become legal here, well, I don't remember much. Um, so the next section that I wanted to jump into is called Sales in 60 Seconds.
Yep.
Um, Speaking of low attention spans.
Yeah.
And
Let's
so
see if I can do this. As you've learned, I don't do short answers, but yeah, okay. I'll give it a
well,
try.
this has all been super valuable. So, I mean, and if somebody needs more time, give it more time. No, there's no gun to our heads here. So, in general, though, quick questions, quick answers.
Yeah.
So first question, do you recommend different social platforms for salespeople in different industries?
Yeah, I mean, be where your audience is. So like for Tom James, it made sense because they're so visual to be on Instagram and Facebook. But the reality was their buying audience was on LinkedIn. So, go where your audience is. If your audience is not on LinkedIn and you know that for a fact, maybe you're a B2C, then why would you waste time on it? So you want to be on the platforms that your audience is on.
Yeah, we have a lot of people interact with us. Obviously we're B2B.
Yeah.
We create something for field salespeople. A lot of interaction over LinkedIn, virtually nothing on Instagram or
Right.
Facebook. But I mean, but still stuff happens there.
Yeah.
I do have to go through all those spammy messages on Instagram every now and again, and there are people that are reaching out to the company and not just asking me if I want
Exactly.
porn.
Yeah, exactly. Jeez.
Instagram. But so what do you think makes a good first impression on LinkedIn? What comes to the top of your mind there?
Yeah, so anything that's atop the fold, right? So a banner image, which we've already talked about, you want something that's branded to your company.
Not a skull and crossbones.
Not a skull and crossbones, like unless you're a pirate. And then an engaging photo, right? So a close-up smiling photo of yourself, look like you. I pick on realtors, but you know what I mean? Like the 1980 picture of the realtor, and they hand you the card and you look at that and you look like them. I'm like, is this your daughter? Which I actually said to someone the other day, oh, there's a picture of your daughter. She's like, no, that's me. I'm like, oh, sorry, my bad. But, you know, look like you if you've got in you, you know, if you got the gray growing in from COVID-19, if you, you know, have a beard now, if you run out of contacts, you're wearing glasses, you know, you want to make sure that you look like yourself so that when you do meet the person via Zoom or eventually again, face to face, there's not that disconnect, because that can really, that could detract from the positive sentiment, that could detract from the KLT factor, right? So make sure you look like yourself, do what you did. And in the headline, instead of just title it company, you know, who you help, how you help them. Make sure in your about section to just expand on that and make your profile a resource by adding content. But just to start, banner, good picture, decent headline.
I don't know if this is advised or not, but I've got a pic. I'm holding my little dog in that picture. Although that's a 5-year-old picture now, and the dog has already gone to doggy heaven. But
Aww.
so I've been thinking about updating that one. But it's almost like people recognize me because I'm
Right.
holding the dog I'm worried about. So I haven't changed that. I haven't swapped that one out yet.
And were you at a wedding? Because it looks like you're wearing a suit and your dog is wearing
I
like,
was, yeah, I was at a
yeah.
wedding, and then and I look different because now I've got my COVID-19 home haircut that I gave myself, and
Exactly.
I didn't necessarily do a good job.
I know my hair's just getting longer and longer and longer. You know, I would, if it was me, I would update it. This is
Yeah.
me,
All right.
right?
Well, I should do that. It's 5 years old anyway, so it's kind of
Because
due.
what if someone says like, "Oh, that's so cute. What's your puppy's name?" And you're like, "Oh, he's
It,
dead."
it,
And
it
then like,
does it does come up.
oh,
People are like, "Oh, I saw you have a dog. Are you a dog?"
yeah.
It makes for some
Hashtag
awkward
awkward.
conversation. Yeah, right. Exactly. Like, I'm not that broken up about it. It was years ago,
Yeah, whatever. He's dead. You know, like no,
but
no. That's
I'm actually due to get a new dog here. My lifestyle's not super geared towards that right now, but I'm considering it. So
But hey, you're home a lot, so now is a very good time to get a dog. My assistant got a
yeah.
dog, and you know it's a puppy, so it pees inside all the time. But the whole family's there, so they can catch it. So now is
Hmm.
an excellent time to get a new dog.
Yeah, I think it
Yep,
is.
yep.
I think a lot of the shelters are like empty right now because
I know.
everyone came and got it. It's like the first time ever. Like
Yeah,
people are like, nope, I want a dog. I'm going down there.
I need some company.
Hmm.
No, I love it. I mean, there are a few tiny good things. You know, we can see the Himalayas from our back. We can see Russia from our backyard, and most of the pounds are empty. So yay.
There you go. What would you say if you were going to tell us, if someone was like, okay, fine, I believe you, I'll give you 10 minutes. What are the 10 minutes of things that people should update on their LinkedIn profile right now?
Yeah. So the one time 10-minute thing is background image, headline, picture, if you can do that, and then add some good content. But if you're going to spend like 10 minutes a day, I would, you know, make sure. Here's the thing: you take your phone, you start binge watching whatever you're binge watching on Netflix or Hulu or Amazon Prime right now, and you just go through your inbox and see what leads you have there and delete everybody else. But yeah, 10 minutes, you know, reviewing your inbox, reviewing your invitations, using the search to find good prospects, reaching out to good prospects, and then especially those who are engaging on LinkedIn, taking a minute or two to engage with their content. All of that, just elephant one bite at a time, right? Just a little bit every day will make a huge difference.
Yeah.
You just need to be consistent is the key.
And if you
You're
could
not going to the
give,
gym right now. You might as well be on LinkedIn, right?
I know you're not doing anything interesting right
I'm clearly not either.
now. So if you could give a field salesperson one piece of advice for using social media, what would it be?
Yeah, be consistent and stalk your prospects. I mean, I don't be an obvious stalker, but you definitely want to find them and bookmark them and just keep an eye on them. Maybe move them into your CRM, but keep an eye on your good prospects so that you can jump on any opportunity that arises.
All right. And what's the biggest mistake you see people make with their LinkedIn profile?
Yeah, like I said before, make sure it's not a skull and crossbones, quota crushing sales guy resume. Make sure it's a resource for your buyers.
Yeah, absolutely. So as an actionable takeaway, what should the field salespeople listening today do as a first step to get started with social selling?
Yeah, download our ebook. Like I said, it's free. So if you go to www.vengreso, ebook.com, that'll give you the profile ebook. So definitely download that. Just work on it a little bit a day. I mean, it originally was 101 ways to rock your personal brand. So I just had a step per page. So just do one little thing each day on your profile. It'll make a really big difference in the long run. So I would say that's the first step. And if you decide that selling with LinkedIn, like there's something to this, we knocked 80% off our program, at least right now. I don't know when you're listening to this, but right now it's, I'll just say it's 80% off. I'm not going to say the price, but if you go to moresalescalls.com, you can check out that program. But normally it's $500. So we'll just leave it at that.
80% off of 500 is
because I can't promise it's going to be $97 in like August or September. So sorry. Sorry if you're listening to this later.
Yeah. Back when the economy works again.
Back when the economy sucks.
We raised our prices. All right. Well, I'm going to attempt to summarize all the wisdom that you've dropped upon us here today for all those folks that are driving. So first of all, so make sure you have a strong brand on LinkedIn. Make sure your profile looks great. You want to curate useful content from your company and let people know why it's useful for them. Keep your engagement up and keep conversations going so that when you reach out to your prospects, they're ready to connect. Stalk your prospects, find them on LinkedIn, save their profile, engage with them, and when they share or do something, comment on that post or reshare it to engage with them. You can follow Viveka's two-step referral method, which is look for any common connections with a prospect and see if they can refer you to that prospect. Ask to be CC'd on the intro, so even if the prospect doesn't get back to you, you can give them one more ping.
Yeah.
Share helpful content and comments on LinkedIn to become makes you more likable, makes you more trusted, moves you into that trusted advisor category of salesperson that we always want to be in, and kind of go from knowing you to liking you to trusting you and then buying from you. So when messaging people on LinkedIn, think about using your LinkedIn mobile app because it has the capability to send voice messages and even video messages that will stand out. I don't think I've ever gotten one of those on LinkedIn.
I know. So think about how much you'd stand out.
Yeah. Granted, I'm not the best at getting back to LinkedIn messages, but maybe I have. I just didn't notice. You can personalize your message. You can add value. You can add a call to action. Make your summary section make it a resource instead of a resume. So provide value in the first two lines so that they'll want to click to read more in your profile. Create templates for people in your company to upload headlines, create banner images, and summaries that will help them provide value and speak to the buyer and make your marketing messaging consistent across your company. So you want to have someone in your marketing team make it easy for everyone else in the company to make their LinkedIn profiles look good. You can't just send out an email and say, "Hey, everybody make your profiles look good."
Exactly.
Have someone in charge of this. Marketing can help create this type of content, and in general can help enable salespeople throughout all of the steps of the buyer's journey, and they can create processes that make it easy for people at the company to share this material out to everyone else. Don't over automate on LinkedIn. You don't want it to be so obvious that it's automated and that can kind of get in the way of your selling. LinkedIn can even ban you if you're too automated or if it's too obvious. You want to find relevant potential prospects. To do that, go to LinkedIn search and type in a content keyword and use filters to search by industry, company, and region. If you have prospects or customers who are asking common questions, you can use native video on LinkedIn to answer these questions and then tag them in the answer so that that they can share it with colleagues and friends who often will have kind of similar issues or questions. To see a great LinkedIn profile in business to business, check out the salespeople's profiles at the company Proofpoint. In B2C, you can look at some of the salespeople's profiles from Tom James. That's a company, not a person, Tom James.
Yeah.
And look at Vengresso profiles. That's Viveka's company, as a great example of how to share content. So, well, Viveka, this has been so helpful for people. Where can listeners read more about your work? How do they reach out to you if they're interested in learning more?
Sure. So, by all means, feel free to reach out to me at linkedin.com/in/LinkedIn expert. Actually, if you Google LinkedIn expert, I think I'm like the second or third after the paid that shows up. So
Wow, look at
I
you.
know. Thank you,
All I've
LinkedIn.
got is like Steve Benson Badger is my.
Well, that works too, right? So, and we teach how to customize your URL in our course. But no, if you reach out and just make sure to customize the invitation. If you to click on connect both on my profile because I've got the follow button up, or on mobile, just click on the three dots and then you can just personalize the invitation to connect and just let me know that you heard me on Steve's podcast here. If you want to learn more about our course, just go to moresalescalls.com. I'm old, so you can email me and I'll actually respond. It's viveka@vengresso.com. Any of those methods. And of course, our website's Vengresso with one S.com. If you go to vengresso.com/resources, you can also see a bunch of examples of content that we've created for sales enablement. It's literally for our sales team to use when reaching out and engaging with prospects.
Awesome. We'll put all that in the notes section for the podcast here.
Awesome.
Viveka, this has been a great episode of the Outside Sales Talk. I really appreciate your time. And for our listeners, if you can think of other sales reps who would benefit from learning about how to do social selling and use LinkedIn better, share the love and forward this episode on to them. And take care until next time, guys.
Awesome. Thanks so much.